Otep after Hulu. This is General Muti from the great state of North Philadelphia, city of Richard Allen. And this is the John Life is Real series. And we here to talk about the upcoming election, the congressional election. There are 3 candidates involved, and I have a direct connection with all 3 of them. And you will be interested in finding out what that immediate connection is to all 3 candidates. We're going to share that information with you and let you make the decision as to what you think it is and how relevant it is to how you cast your vote. We're going to lay it all out and let you be the determining factor as to how you support one candidate or be against another. Because I'm from North Philly and because North Philly is under attack, gentrification and the whole 9, we focusing on North Philly. So North Philly, walk with me. Now, my relationship with all 3 candidates is that of somebody, first and foremost, 2 of the candidates actually sent me to my house, sent me advertisement wanting me to vote for them, want me to support them. This is Senator Sheree Street, and this is Dr. Stanford, Ale Stanford, excuse me if I butcher her name, Ale Stanford. Now, it has my name on it, if you see. I just covered, only thing I covered up is the address, because they actually sent this to my house wanting me to support them and support their vote. This was not sent to my house. I got this when I went to one of RABB's rallies because I support RABB. And I'm going to tell you why I support RABB and why not only RABB is the best man for his candidacy, for this job, is he's the only man for the job. And he's the only man for the job because he understands it's not a panacea, it's not a cure-all, it's not going to solve all the problems of black people once he's elected into Congress. He understands that it's just a tool in the toolbox like everything else. And that's why he's the best and only man for the job. Now, one of the things that my first relationship with coming home back from prison, being convicted for a crime I didn't commit, and it took me 42 years to exonerate myself. And so now I'm here. Now, I met RABB in Lancaster, PA, because he came out there to see what us farmers was doing, the urban farmers, the urban growers. And he wanted to know because he said that, you know, what affects his district and his people, more importantly, his people, is relevant to him. And that thing that he came for was to know or learn from the growers. And I was impressed by his humility of admitting that he didn't know anything about urban agriculture, though that Pennsylvania is a predominantly rural state, and he didn't know anything, so he was there to learn about what was going on. So I asked him, could I interview him? And I did, and it went well. And if you want to see it, go on my YouTube page and check it out, the interview. It's a stellar interview. But the thing that I learned when I met him is that he spoke with his chest. He talked about issues that are not popular issues, like what white supremacy is doing to this country and the people who practice it, whether they was black-faced white supremacists or white-faced white supremacists or brown-faced white supremacists. He talked about it. Those are my words, not his, but he definitely broke down white supremacy. And he was there primarily to help us stop food apartheid. My words, not his. And what the black community could do to feed itself, to feed itself and to sustain feeding itself. The actual conference was called PASA, Pennsylvania Sustainable Agriculture. And it's helped us learn or use different techniques. We come together from all across Pennsylvania and other parts of the world, but the focus is Pennsylvania, to learn new farming techniques, how and what to do. And the thing that I like about RABB, that I learned there shortly thereafter, because every time he spoke, the first time he spoke with his chest, he spoke with his chest every time thereafter. And that to me, that represents conviction and integrity. Not being afraid to talk about the things that we talk about on the corners or in the barbershops, but talk about those things openly in the houses of power and to the people who represent that power. He talks about them, just unflinchingly, like myself. And so he supports how to feed yourself and how to attack food apartheid. He supports housing, not just tenancy, but home ownership and the stopping of stealing black property and black homes. He supports things like he supports the efforts to stop the injustice going on in the courts and various other things. He supports stop closing our schools and things of that nature. And in fact, I'm standing right here across from a school. The school right here is called, it used to be called Spring Garden School, and that's the school I went to as a child. And if you see the school, they done turned it into housing. That's gentrification. That's going on all over the city. They're turning schools. They're saying our children can't be educated, can't have a place to learn at that's in close proximity to their home. And they're saying that we can't do that because there's not enough of them there, but they find a way to fill it up with white folks or black folks, folks that are wealthy, well off or wealthy, which people living in Richard Island and in this vicinity are not well or well off. So obviously they can't afford to live in those places. And so this is some of the things that RABB has talked about. Walk with me, North Philly, while I cook like Raekwon the chef. And more importantly, what I want to bring to you is I want to show you how, as Morpheus said to Neo, talking to Neo, he told him, I'm going to show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And that's what I'm going to do. And trust me, it's some real sensitive stuff that I'm dealing with here. So y'all going to get it, and y'all going to make that decision for yourself based on the evidence, based on the facts, based on the evidence. Like I said, RABB didn't reach out to me. I met RABB, and once I met RABB, I knew who he was and what he represented, and he's been consistent. Whereas before I came home, I was locked down, and being locked down, we was locked down during COVID, and when COVID hit, sisters and brothers was dying, and I reached out to these two individuals right here. I reached out to both of them. I reached out to Dr. Alay Stanford, and I reached out to Senator Sharif Street. And when I reached out to him, I reached out to Dr. Stanford, the sister. I reached out to her 3 times. She never got back with me. I reached out to Street twice. He never got back with me. And him and her not getting back with me is emblematic of them not caring about my circumstance. I reached out to them. I knew I was coming home, but my sisters and brothers that I left behind, I knew they wasn't coming home sometime soon. Many of them were dying. We were dying and dropping like flies and getting sick. And the white boys were setting it up. And by white boys, I mean the people in the administration. They were setting it up so black people could catch COVID. And we were dying in alarming rates. And I reached out to these two individuals and they never responded. Now, since I've been home, I went to their rallies. I went to where they spoke and they talked glowingly about the achievements they made in COVID. And they did some great work. Both of them did some great work. But what they didn't tell the electoral voters, they didn't tell the voters that somebody reached out to them, trapped behind bars, and was telling them that black people were dying in alarming rates, getting sick and suffering in alarming rates. They didn't tell you that, and they didn't respond. They didn't answer. Moreover, the Senate put together an actual committee, and the committee was chaired by, I think, Senator Murray or Murph. I forget her name. It's a female senator. But I reached out and I gave Senate testimony so that they would know what's actually going on. And I specifically addressed Senator Street because he was from North Philly. And I said, yo, man, you should really understand the need to help sisters and brothers that these white boys are just setting up to die. We're dying in droves. We need help. No answer. Crickets. And I got a response back from all of the senators on that committee. But the only two senators that didn't respond back to me were the two black senators, Senator Anthony Williams and Sharif Street. I never forgot that. And the reason why they didn't respond to me, the same thing I think Dr. Stanford didn't respond, because I couldn't give them no vote. At the time, she wasn't even running for office. So my voice wasn't relevant to her. And to him, I couldn't get him a vote. I couldn't get him no funding. I couldn't be his supporter, if you will. But so I wasn't really important. So now that I'm out here, I can tell the story. And as I tell the story, you need to know that they had an opportunity to save plenty of lives behind those prison walls, and they chose not to. Because you know, with black people, we get ignored, and walk with me, no Philly, we get ignored on a regular basis when it comes down to issues like this. Just talking to the average sister on the street and brothers on the street, I just got finished talking to some sisters and brothers and telling them what I was doing, because they thought, you know, I was trying to spy on them or whatever. But I told them that I was born and raised down here, and I'm one of y'all, and I come from down here. And then I told them, as soon as I mentioned the election, they said, yeah, they don't come down here. You know what I mean? They knew right away that politicians only show up when they want your vote. You know what I mean? They only your friend, and they talk their talk only when they want you to vote, when they want you to support them, and they want something from you. And so they already know that down here in Richard Island, and North Philly know that, definitely. So I'm saying to you, Senator Street, as well as Dr. Stanford, they both very intelligent individuals. They got good ideas, but we talking about showing up when it's most needed, having authority in your chest when you speak to get things done. Mind you, least we forget, I had a situation where, as a litigator, we were talking about Act 40, and that's for those of us who don't know, that's the situation that allowed a white supremacist senator in the state of Pennsylvania to draft legislation to usurp not only our duly elected prosecutor, but also to take the authority away from our people as voters. And Sharice Street didn't speak with his chest. He told me, he actually said that, yeah, well, he admitted that it was white supremacy of them filing it, but he said, oh, well, you just use your language and we'll use our language in the petition. And I knew right then and there that that petition was a dead duck in the water, because you're admitting that it's white supremacy, but you won't put it in your petition. That's why the petition failed. And so, you know, he just went away after that. And so both of these individuals have never really showed up when it was most needed by the most vulnerable. And that's the thing. When I reached out to them, I wasn't reaching out to them for me, because I knew I was coming home. But I knew thousands of sisters and brothers, sisters up Muncie, sisters up Cambridge Springs, sisters and brothers up Waymart. Well, Waymart is closed down. Frackville, Mahanoy, Phoenix, which used to be Greatest Ford, that came Phoenix, and so forth and so on. The 28 prisons that you have. I knew sisters and brothers was dying. We was in a prison that it was COVID free, and then because they tempted fate and death, they started shifting COVID infected prisoners into the prison just so that we would catch COVID, and it spread through the prison like wildfire. I was fortunate enough that I never caught it, even though they physically tried to give me COVID on multiple occasions, but they failed every time. So I'm here, I'm supposed to be here, because they tried to kill me. They tried to murder me, literally. And so when reaching out to Dr. Stanford and Sharice Street, it fell on deaf ears. They had an opportunity to do some things and help a whole lot of people. They didn't. They talk about, when they speak, they always talk about the things that they did that were great, but they don't talk about the things when they made mistakes, when people reached out to them for help who had no help, and they did nothing. And they just left thousands of people to be sick and to die in prison, where we was the most vulnerable. All right, so that's the reality. Now, let me tell you what I seen when I went to the debate that they had. It wasn't the first one. It was the second debate that they had at Bright Hope Baptist Church. Let me show you how the ancestors be moving for us. When I was campaigning for Larry Krasner, and we got Larry elected, the day of the election, we went all over the city. And the first place that we stopped at was at Bright Hope Baptist Church. That's not an accident. That's a real thing. And everywhere we went, we was talking to regular people. And the regular person that we was talking to, this brother actually runs the church. And he shared some very sensitive information with me about how Temple University came to them, the church administrators, multiple times and said, we want to buy this property. We want to buy this space, this land. And they said, we'll give you whatever you ask for, we'll give you double. And they said, pick any space in the city and we'll get it for you. You can have it. Now, these white developers, how can they promise somebody that they'll pick a spot in Philadelphia, they'll have the spot if they don't got city council in pocket? Let me explain that to you. On city council, they have at-large council people, and then they have councilmatic district people who have specific districts. These council people have what's called councilmatic privilege. They decide who builds, who doesn't build, who sells, who doesn't sell, how something gets built and how it doesn't get built. And so them having that privilege, it's only them that say what goes and what stays. So how are white developers going to come to the people at Bright Hope Baptist Church and say, pick any place in the city and it's yours? We just want this spot here. The only way the white developers and the city planners, the white city planners can do that is if they know they got city council in their pocket. That's the only way that they can do it. Hold up. Morpheus said to Neo, I'm gonna show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. It goes even deeper than that. Now, during the campaign that I was going around, we was campaigning hard for Krasner, I witnessed something very strange. I witnessed a whole bunch of black leaders running up to our district attorney and asking him to call for the removal of Brady. Now, I'm standing there at these meetings. Most of them were impromptu, but nobody ever asked me, like General Muti, what you think about that? Nobody ever asked me, but this is what I would say, because nobody ever asked me, so now I'm gonna tell you what I think about that. The reason why these cowardly black leaders came to our district attorney and asked him to lead the charge in calling for Brady to step down, because they know that Brady got the tapes on them. They know that they have been compromised. And if they dare raise their voice at their God, the great mighty Brady, that they would be scared to death that he would pull their file out and show people who they really are. He would show them exactly who they are and what he got on them. So if you talking about right now, the Epstein files is the biggest files on the planet. Well, Philadelphia got Epstein files. It's called the Brady files. And in the Brady files, he has the background of each sellout ass black leader that has went before him and made these backroom deals that have nothing to do with our people. So that's two instances where somebody would have something that knows something but didn't do anything to help, but rather compromise people so that they can maintain the power and control over our community. And lastly, least we forget, Brady got caught up in the federal scandal, the $90,000 bench buying scheme. How do I know? Because I read the newspaper and I used it in my argument, my legal argument, and I showed how Brady went to a then retired judge who was running against Brady, and because he was such a viable candidate, which they did historically, when they have a viable candidate that can remove Brady, they would pay him off. And so they paid this former judge off. His name was James, or they call him Jimmie. I forget his last name, but it's Jimmie something. Paid him. They said, listen, we're gonna pay you and we're gonna get you your bench back. This is Brady telling them, or whether it's Brady directly or Brady's functionaries, his obsequious minions, said, we're gonna get your bench back and we're gonna give you 90 stacks. And so Judge Jimmie was like, give me that bread. All right, cool. Now, question to the voters. How is the head of the Democratic Party, the chair, going to promise a formerly sitting judge that he'll get him his bench back. Bob Brady is not a judge. What influence does he have over the judiciary where he can promise an opponent that could threaten to take his job that he'll pay him and get him his bench back? Because he knows the judges that he got on the bench, that he backed to get on the bench, that he knows for sure that he got them in the pocket, and they'll do whatever he tell them to do. And that's why when we've been suffering, a lot of these judges, these black prosecutors, these black defense lawyers, and other individuals, they've never said anything about us and never came to our aid. They was cool with it, and that's where you had the explosion of mass incarceration. But now you see the numbers coming down exponentially, and we're doing beautiful work out here. The sisters and brothers out here in the field, we're doing beautiful work. So that's two examples of individuals saying things that's the white developers that came to the people at Bright Hope Baptist Church, and that's Bob Brady talking to his opponent, Judge Jimmie, I forget his last name, Judge Jimmie, coming to Judge Jimmie and telling him, look, we'll give you 90 stacks and your bench back. That's two people telling people that they could do something for them that lawfully, authoritatively, they don't have the jurisdiction to do. But they know, because the individuals they dealing with, they know that those individuals, they got them in their pocket, they bought and paid for. So this is the type of, and many of these leaders who trying to solicit Larry Krasner to stand up and say, you know, this guy needs to step down, the leaders won't do it because they compromise, and they cowards, and they sold you out. And so this is some of what you got right here, right now. And so we here in the great state of North Philadelphia, city of Richard Island. This is General Muti Ajamu-Osagboro saying, John, life is real. Ahuru Nikasi, freedom is work. Freedom is work. Let's get busy. Tuesday, go out and pull that lever for RABB, because he is the most qualified. He is the one that speaks with his chest, speaks with authority, has integrity, and he's been consistent since I dealt with him for the last 3 years, dealing with topics that are very, very sensitive to our community. He speaks out and he's unafraid, like many of these, not unlike many of these black sellout leaders. Hotep. That's General Muti, out.